had a friend that was always telling me that I should broker cars, but I was always told I shouldn't mix my passion with my business, So I kind of put that off, but it kind of came to me a natural opportunity whenever somebody at a car show reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm looking for a Porsche 993. I know exactly what I want, but I don't know where to look for this car. You seem like you know what you're looking at. Could you advise me? And I'll pay you, a fee to help me buy this car. At that time, I had no business or any idea or how to make money with these cars that I loved. But, I had a friend that did a similar business model, and I knew that he was charging a small percentage. And basically, I told this client that I could help him find this car, charge him a small percentage, which ultimately I ended up finding the car for him. We had got a PPI on this 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera convertible. It was a red on tan car with like 45,000 miles. We picked up the car for like $48,000 back in probably like 2018, 19, I believe it was. It's the first car I ever brokered. The client still hits me up today about Porsche 911s. He loves the car. This was just a regular guy that didn't know anything about cars, but knew what he wanted. Porsche 911 that would take him back to his youth. I was happy to help him fulfill that dream. So that was the first car that I brokered. Not to toot my own horn, but I kind of think myself like a Rain Man as far as like cars and stuff. I just love these cars. I'm very passionate. This was not a business at first for me. I grew up on Instagram. I probably was a lot like everybody else out there. I was a car spotter. I was going to car shows, Pebble Beach, Monterey, Amelia Island, all the car auctions, car events across the country, and I was networking with clients and not even realizing these would be my customers down the road. I just love Ferraris, Porsches, Ford GTs, Mercedes, all these blue chip collector cars, and so I grew up just soaking up that information, the who's who of the collector car world, who's buying, selling, trading these cars. Thankfully to Instagram, mostly, which is a free channel to me, which is amazing. All these collectors are basically on there, showing their car collection, and it's amazing how you can have a like-minded interest with somebody who's twice or sometimes triple your age, and all because we share the same interest in a rare car, we become great friends, across the country. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of cool people, thankful to social media, and made a lot of great sales and acquisitions. I found a lot of cars from social media, Instagram. I'm not shy about messaging somebody and seeing if they'll sell their very rare one-of-one color car. So a great example is I had a client reach out to me, and he said he was looking for a very rare color 6-speed F430. And similar to your Lamborghini LP640 registry, I had a pretty good tab on where these rare cars were, who owned them, and which cars were good examples, and yada yada. And so this client came to me and said that he wanted the rarest, coolest color car he could find. And I knew that there was a one-of-one Verde Zeltweg green 6-speed 430 I found through Instagram with Coolio interior. A guy had in Illinois. It's a very beautiful car, perfectly optioned, late model 08 6-speed 430. I've been following this car on Instagram for a long time. I knew for 2 or 3 years that this car was hiding in Chicago, Illinois. So I got the request for this car, reached out to the owner to see if he was interested in selling. And with a lot of these guys, it just comes down to numbers. They're businessmen. We came to him with a couple offers, back and forth negotiating. We were able to acquire the car at a very strong price at that time, which is funny because the car actually had miles. The car had 15,000 miles, and this car ultimately sold for the price of a very low mileage red car at the time, just because of the rare and desirable color. And so I'm a true, firm believer that colors make cars. And I have tons of solid evidence and proof of this. I've sold equivalent cars for a huge amount more just because it was a rare factory specification. So a lot of times people will come to me looking for a car that's not often for sale. So I have to go out and find the car from a private collector that has a car stashed away in their garage. And sometimes it takes a little more effort, or we call it arm twisting, to get the car from their collection. When that happens, you kind of have to bid yourself up against a wall. We start throwing numbers at these collectors until something's entertaining to them for them to sell. We've seen a lot of cases where we've had to pay over market value just to acquire a one-of-one car because somebody had to have this rare Posi Blue 430 Scuderia. The highlight of my car brokering career is obviously connecting with a bunch of great collectors across the country that I made amazing friendships that hopefully will last me a lifetime. Ultimately, was getting to experience my dream car, the 2017 LaFerrari Aperta. I was able to find and source this car for a client in Rosso Corsa with 160 miles on the car. I sold it to a client. I found the car in Ohio. It was in the U.S. It was a U.S. car. It was 100% original, factory, perfect car. And I found a collector in Canada that was willing to buy the car. So he purchased the car, and he didn't know what he was going to do with the car because if he would pay a crazy amount if he brought it into Canada. So ultimately, he decided just to keep the car in the USA with myself. And so he never saw this $5 million plus car that I sold him. He purchased the car, he sent it to me here in Atlanta, Georgia. We stored the car here for a couple months, and then he called me one day saying, basically he didn't know what he was going to do with this car. He didn't care about the hybrid system. I told him this is probably something that's going to go downhill with the batteries, needing to be replaced as it ages over time. So we agreed to sell the car, and I suggested we put the car on BringATrailer, which at that time, nobody was selling $1 million cars on BAT. People kind of still looked at it as like a grassroots website. And so I mentioned the idea to my client, hey, let's throw up this $5 million plus car on BAT. And pretty casually, he was like, oh, you think so? And I was like, for sure, man, I believe in this format. I knew all these collectors are on this site. I can name the WeatherTech CEO, all these huge collectors that I know they live on this website. I know it's the right audience. He believed in the idea. We put the car on BAT. We shot the car with Larry Yanovich, which you might have seen in a lot of Ed's posts. Great friend of mine, Winning Auto. We shot the car at Atlanta Motorsports Park and eventually put the car on BringATrailer in May of 2022. And we sold the car for $5,360,000 on BAT, which still remains the most expensive car ever sold on the site. So the person who bought the car was just some random guy, like some random collector in Pennsylvania. If I said his name, nobody has never heard of him. He's just some random guy. And that's the amazing thing, is that you never know who's buying these amazing cars. It's not just celebrities and high-profile people. It's somebody who owns a metal roofing company, or they produce lip fillers for Kim Kardashian. You have no idea who's behind the scenes of buying these crazy rare Bugattis and Koenigsegg and LaFerraris. So basically, social media has been a great factor in my business. I was able to connect with the person I sold the LaFerrari Aperta to through social media. Basically, long story short, I found this amazing collector through social media, and we started talking, just like I said, being a like-minded individual. Even though we have an age difference, we connected on cars. And so we stayed in touch. After meeting him a couple months and talking, I was able to present him with the LaFerrari Aperta, which he purchased. And just through building trust on social media is how I was able to make that sale. And that's pretty amazing to me, that through Instagram and other formats, you can pretty much build a resume for yourself, which a lot of people underestimate. I'm pretty good with communication with these clients, that I like to build an instant credibility, instant trust. I like to show my expertise, and that I know what I'm talking about, and my passion. I'm very passionate about this car, and so I kind of relay that to them, and I think it generates with them. And so because of that, I was able to gain this client's trust. He gave me the car, and obviously I fulfilled the duty. We ended up taking the car from Ohio to Atlanta, enclosed transport, with my trusted carrier, WDC Transport. And once we had the car here in Atlanta, we stored it for 3 months, eventually put it for sale on the market, put no more than 3 miles on the car through transport and the photography and stuff. And we sold the car for a good, healthy profit for the client. People underestimate the advantages of this free platform, how you can connect with literally millionaires and billionaires. Because of Instagram, I've probably sold over 100 specialty collector cars, just because of Instagram and connecting with the collectors on there. I've sold almost $100 million in cars. So I grew up in the collector car world around people who were very much into classic muscle cars. I grew up going to Barrett-Jackson and those types of classic car auctions, which really focused on American cars. What I've noticed and what I've focused in, I was born in 1998, younger generation. I've seen the modern collector shift focus from American classic cars to European exotic and high-performance cars from mostly the 90s and forward. None of my collectors are hitting me up to buy 1970s cars, honestly. I very rarely get a request for anything from the 60s, 70s, or 80s. I'm always looking for 90s and newer, and that's mostly because these cars require less maintenance. These cars are easier to own, they're better to drive often is the case, and easier to live with. These cars are more accessible to get parts and, just in my opinion, better to drive.
By now you know that Auto Tempest is the best place to shop for your next car, because they compile all the results from all the major listing sites into one place. And of course they support the best car content on YouTube. But did you also know that Auto Tempest now has a new mobile app? That's right, in addition to using it in your browser on a computer, you can also have it for iOS or Android in the palm of your hand. So check it out and download it. I know you'll love it the way I love it, and leave them a great review.